Good evening. I want to begin with a rather curious observation. Did you know that hundreds, if not thousands, of the most successful people in modern history have taken the time to share their stories in books? They have laid out in meticulous detail the principles, the strategies, and the philosophies that led them to greatness. And yet the vast majority of people will never read them. How do you explain that? One single book could potentially save a person 5 years of painful and expensive trial and error, and yet they will not open it. I once heard a very wise and very painful statement. Someone said, if you ever want to hide wealth and success from the average person, just put it in a book. That hit me hard. Not because it was an insult, but because for so much of the world, it is the truth. Most people will complain about their situation. They will lament their circumstances, but they will not dedicate 1 hour in an evening to reading a book that holds the very answers they are looking for. Tonight, we are going to talk about the greatest and most accessible university in the world. It has no tuition fees, no entrance exams, and its library contains the wisdom of the ages. This is the University of Life, and your enrollment begins with a single decision, the decision to become a serious student of success. In our introduction, we began with a powerful, almost tragic observation, that the secrets to wealth, success, and a well-lived life are not secrets at all. They are openly published, bound in books, and available for a pittance on shelves all across the world. And yet, for the vast majority, they remain hidden in plain sight. This brings us to the threshold of our great subject tonight. We stand at the gates of the most important and most profitable institution of learning in the world. It has no ivy-covered walls, no prestigious admission process. Its only requirement for entry is a deep and burning hunger for a better life. This is the University of Life, and this first great pillar of our discussion is about the most important decision you will ever make. It is about your enrollment. It is about the decision to learn. Before we can discuss the curriculum of success, before we can explore the faculties of mindset and the mechanics of wealth, we must first talk about the day you walk through the gates. The day you stop being a casual observer of your own life and become a serious, dedicated student. For many, this day of enrollment does not come with celebration and ceremony. It often comes in a moment of quiet desperation. Allow me to share with you my own story of enrollment. It is not a story I am proud of in its beginning, but it is a story that holds the key to everything I have learned since. Years ago, I found myself in a state of profound frustration. I was in my mid-20s, a husband, a young father. I had ambition. I had a willingness to work hard. I thought that was the entire formula. I would wake up early, I would stay late, I was putting in the hours. But my life was not changing. My pockets were full of everything but money. My promises to my family were piling up, but my results were not. I was drowning in the gap between my ambitions and my reality. Finally, having exhausted all of my own limited ideas, I did one of the hardest things a young, proud man can do. I went to my mentor for help. He was a man who had everything I wanted: wealth, wisdom, and a life of apparent ease and control. I sat down with him and I laid out my frustrations. I said, I'm working hard, but I'm not getting ahead. I have debts, I have goals, but nothing is changing. What is the secret? What am I missing? Now, in my youthful naivete, I was hoping for a handout, a loan, a magical business opportunity, a secret stock tip. I was looking for a fish. He listened patiently. He let me pour out all of my frustrations. And when I was done, he did not reach for his checkbook. He turned in his chair, reached for a leather-bound book on his shelf, and handed it to me. I remember the feeling as if it were yesterday. A wave of confusion, followed by a sharp sting of disappointment. I thought to myself, a book? I have bills to pay. I have a family to feed. I need money, not words. He must have seen the look on my face, the silent protest in my eyes, because he smiled a knowing smile, the kind of smile a master chess player gives when they see the entire board, and he said the words that became the turning point of my entire existence. He said, Jim, you are where you are because of what you do not know. If your goal is to have what the wealthy have, your first task is to learn what the wealthy know. Your financial statement is a direct reflection of your philosophy. To change the statement, you must first enrich the philosophy. And in that moment, something shifted inside me. It was a profound, earth-shattering epiphany. I had been trying to solve an intellectual problem with physical labor. I had been trying to build a skyscraper with a shovel. I finally understood a foundational law of the universe. Your outer world is a direct reflection of your inner world. And the primary way to change your inner world, your knowledge, your philosophy, your mindset, is to introduce new, powerful ideas into it. I had been spending my life working hard on my job. He was teaching me that I needed to start working harder on myself. My formal education had taught me how to earn a paycheck. My mentor was handing me the key to my self-education, the key that would ultimately earn me a fortune. That day, I did not receive a fish. I was taught how to fish. That was my day of enrollment. This experience taught me a vital distinction that is at the heart of the University of Life. There are two kinds of education, and you must master both, but you must never confuse their purpose. First, there is formal education. This is the education you get in school, from grade school through college. It is important. It teaches you the basics of your society. It teaches you a trade, a skill. It teaches you how to function within the existing economic structure. Formal education, as I have always said, will make you a living. And making a living is an honorable and necessary thing. But we must be honest about the limits of formal education. It is by its nature designed to create a competent employee, not necessarily a free-thinking, wealth-creating individual. It teaches you how to work within the system. It rarely teaches you how to build a system. It provides you with a solid foundation, but it also creates a ceiling. Then there is the second education, self-education. This is the education you pursue after your last class is over. It is the education you design for yourself, driven by your own curiosity and your own ambition. This is the education that happens in your own library late at night. It happens in the seminars you choose to attend. It happens in the conversations you seek out with people who know more than you do. If formal education builds the foundation, self-education is the ladder you place upon that foundation that allows you to climb as high as your imagination will allow. There is no ceiling in self-education. Think of life as a complex and high-stakes game. Your formal education teaches you the basic rules and gives you a starting position on the board. But the instruction manual, the advanced strategy guide, the book of secrets written by all the grandmasters who have ever played the game that is not handed out in school, you must find it for yourself. Those instruction manuals are the books on the shelves of the world. The wealthy are simply those who have taken the time to study the manual. The poor and the struggling are those who are trying to win a complex game through trial and error, never realizing the rules have already been written down for them. So if this University of Life is so powerful, why are so few people enrolled? Because enrollment requires a conscious, deliberate commitment. It requires you to move from being a dabbler in personal growth to becoming a serious student. What is the difference? The dabbler is passive. They might watch a motivational video if it comes across their feed. They might read an article if it's short and easy. Their learning is accidental, sporadic, and driven by entertainment. The serious student is active and intentional. They have a curriculum. They have a reading list. They treat their self-education with the same seriousness and respect as a formal university degree. They understand that they are not just reading a book, they are shaping their own mind. So what is the price of admission to become a serious student? It is not money. The price of admission has three parts. First, the price is humility. You must have the humility to admit, I do not know. You must be willing to suspend your own ego and your own prejudices and be open to new ideas, even if they challenge what you have always believed. The arrogant mind cannot learn. The cup that is already full cannot be filled. Second, the price is time. You must make a conscious decision to trade hours of a lower value for hours of a higher value. You must be willing to trade an hour of passive entertainment for an hour of active education, to trade the noise of the world for the quiet wisdom of a book. This is a simple but not easy choice. And third, the price is a small financial investment. The cost of a library card, the cost of a $20 book, the cost of a ticket to a seminar. Most people see this as an expense. That is a poor person's philosophy. The wealthy see it as the single greatest investment they can ever make. An investment in a car will depreciate. An investment in a new television will be worthless in 5 years. But an investment in your own mind will pay you dividends for the rest of your life. Your enrollment begins today with a simple act. Go and find one book, the book that addresses your most pressing problem or your most exciting ambition. Buy it. That is your tuition payment. And when you open that first page, you have attended your first class. This is the decision that stands before you. It is the decision to stop drifting and start navigating, to stop hoping and start studying, to stop being a passive consumer of the world and to become an active student of success. So this is the first stage, the enrollment. It begins with the awakening, that profound and often painful moment when you realize that your results are a product of your knowledge and that you must learn more to become more. It is clarified by understanding the two educations, recognizing that your formal education will make you a living, but your self-education is what will make you your fortune. And it is solidified by the commitment to enroll, the conscious decision to trade humility, time, and a small investment for a lifetime of growth by becoming a serious student. This decision is your commencement, not the end of your education, but the true beginning of it. It is the day you declare that your past does not have to equal your future. It is the day you take full responsibility for the quality of the ideas that you allow into your mind. And now that you are officially enrolled in this great university of life, we must turn to our first and most important course of study. We must learn about the very faculty that will process all of this new knowledge. This brings us to our second part, the faculty of mindset. In our first session, we made the most important decision of all. We have officially enrolled in the university of life. We have made the commitment to move from being a passive drifter to becoming an active, serious student of success. This brings us to our first course of study. Before we can learn the strategies of wealth, the tactics of business, or the mechanics of achievement, we must first address the very faculty that will process all of this new information. We must learn about the prime mover of all human progress. We must learn about your mind. Welcome to your first class. Welcome to the faculty of mindset, learning how to think. I used to believe, like so many, that the formula for success was simply more hours, more effort, more sweat. I was a disciple of the philosophy of the shovel. If you want a bigger hole, you just dig faster. But then, as I began my own journey of self-education, I came to a profound realization. Your life, right now, your bank account, your health, your relationships, the very quality of your daily existence is a perfect printout of your current level of thinking. It is a mirror, reflecting your philosophy, your beliefs, and your ideas back to you. To attempt to change your life without first changing your thinking is to spend your life polishing a mirror, hoping to see a different reflection. It is an exercise in futility. The great secret that separates the successful from the struggling is this: they are not necessarily working harder, they are thinking better. They are operating from a different set of mental blueprints. Tonight, we are going to learn how to acquire those blueprints. To appreciate the power of a new idea, we must first understand the prison that holds most people captive. Most people live their entire lives inside a tiny, invisible, but very real mental box. They do not know they are in a box. They believe its walls are the edges of the universe. They believe its ceiling is the sky itself. This box is constructed from the limiting beliefs they have accumulated over a lifetime. To truly break free, you must first understand the architecture of your own prison. The first wall of this box is childhood programming. From the moment we are born, we are downloading information. We absorb the beliefs of our parents, our teachers, our community. We hear phrases like, money doesn't grow on trees. Don't get your hopes up. People like us don't do things like that. These are not just words. They are the first bricks being laid in the wall of our perceived reality. We accept them as truth before we even have the capacity to question them. The second wall is social conditioning. As we grow, we learn to conform. We are taught to be realistic. We are encouraged to follow the safe, well-trodden path, to get a good job, to buy a house, to fit in. To dream too big is to risk ridicule. To be different is to be an outcast. And so We learn to trim our own ambitions to fit the expectations of the crowd. We build another wall to protect ourselves from judgment. The third wall is built from past failures. We try something and it doesn't work. We start a business and it fails. We make an investment and we lose money. The undisciplined mind misinterprets these events. It does not see them as lessons. It sees them as a verdict. It concludes, I am not good at this. I am a failure. Each failure becomes another brick, reinforcing the belief that we are not capable of more. And the fourth wall is the echo chamber. We surround ourselves with people who live inside the same box, people who share our same limited beliefs, our same fears, our same excuses. They echo our own programming back to us, confirming that the walls are, in fact, real. You're right, they say. It is too risky. You should just be happy with what you have. And so there you are, trapped inside this four-walled prison of your own unconscious construction. And because you never introduced new, powerful, challenging information into this box, you are destined to live out the same year over and over again, bumping into the same invisible walls. So how do we break free? How do we shatter the walls of this mental prison? We need tools, powerful tools of expansion. The first tool is a sledgehammer. The second is a seed. And both of these tools are found in the same place, inside a good book. A book is a sledgehammer to the walls of your limiting beliefs. Every time you read a book written by someone who has accomplished something you thought was impossible, you are taking a powerful swing at those walls. You read the biography of a person who started with nothing and built an empire. Crack. The wall of your childhood programming begins to fracture. You read a book on finance that explains how money really works, and you realize the old ideas you held were wrong. Crack. The wall of social conditioning weakens. You read the story of a great leader who failed a dozen times before their ultimate success. Crack. The wall of your past failures begins to crumble. A book is a controlled explosion in the mind. It is a direct challenge to the status quo of your thinking. It proves to you that the box you have been living in is not the whole world. It is just a small room in a vast mansion of possibility. But a sledgehammer only clears the ground. Once a wall has been broken, you are left with fertile, open space. You must now plant something new in its place. This is where the idea from a book becomes a seed. Think about the power of a single seed. An acorn is a small, seemingly insignificant thing, but held within that tiny shell is the complete blueprint for a magnificent, towering oak tree. A single idea from a single book can be like that acorn. It is a seed. An idea like your income is a direct reflection of the value you bring to the marketplace. Or the wealthy don't work for money, they have money work for them. These are seeds. When you take one of these ideas and plant it in your mind, and you nurture it, you think about it, you act on it, it begins to grow. It grows roots in your philosophy. It grows a trunk of new habits. And eventually, it produces a harvest of new results in your life. I remember, as I've said, the first time I read Think and Grow Rich. It was not just a book, it was an arsenal of sledgehammers and a nursery of seeds. The idea of having a definite chief aim shattered my old belief that hard work alone was enough. The idea of a mastermind shattered my belief that I had to figure it all out on my own. It broke down the walls, and then it gave me the seeds of desire, faith, and persistence to plant in their place. One book can do that. It can provide the one idea that changes everything. So we have broken down the old walls and planted new seeds. But the work is not over. The architect's job has just begun. Now you must become a disciplined gardener of your own mind. This is the ongoing process of cultivating your new, expanded mindset. The first law of this garden is the law of replacement. You cannot simply get rid of a negative thought or a limiting belief. A weed, once pulled, will leave an empty space that another weed will happily occupy. You must deliberately plant something better in its place. When the old thought, I can't afford that, appears, you must consciously replace it with the new, more powerful question you have learned. How can I afford that? When the old belief, I'm not good enough, appears, you must replace it with the new affirmation you are programming. I am constantly learning and growing into the person who is more than enough. Your library of books provides the endless supply of new, powerful thoughts to replace the old, weak ones. This leads to the second practice of the gardener, turning information into a philosophy. There is a difference between collecting information and building a philosophy. The dabbler collects trivia. The architect builds a philosophy. A philosophy is your personal, organized set of beliefs and principles that guide your decisions. The purpose of reading is not just to know more things. The purpose is to constantly refine and upgrade your personal philosophy. You read a book on finance. You don't just learn a fact. You integrate the principle of pay yourself first into your core financial philosophy. You read a book on health. You integrate the philosophy of prevention over cure into how you live your life. This is how you move from just knowing things to embodying wisdom. And finally, the soil of this garden must be kept fertile. The tool for this is the commitment to curiosity. The moment you declare, "I know it all," is the moment your growth stops. It is the moment you have sealed the walls of a new, slightly larger, but still limited mental box. The successful, the wealthy, the wise, they are all driven by a profound and relentless curiosity. They are always asking why not, what if, how does that work? They are lifelong students in the University of Life. They know that the more they learn, the more they realize how much they do not know. This humility, this curiosity, is what keeps their minds open, fertile, and constantly expanding. You must cultivate this same curiosity. Challenge your own assumptions. Read things you don't agree with. Explore subjects you know nothing about. Be more interested in learning than in being right. So this is the work of our first great course of study. This is the faculty of mindset. It begins by deconstructing the mental box, understanding the invisible walls of programming, conditioning, and fear that have held you captive. It continues with the tools of expansion, using the book as a sledgehammer to shatter those old walls and as a source of new seeds to plant in their place. And it becomes a lifelong practice through the gardener's discipline, where you consciously replace old thoughts, build your personal philosophy, and remain relentlessly curious. The result of this work is a new perspective. You are no longer looking at the world from the cramped basement window of a tiny mental box. You are now standing on the observation deck of a skyscraper with a vast and panoramic view of what is possible. And once you have learned how to think, once you have expanded the horizons of your own mind, you are now prepared and equipped to be highly selective about the ideas and the teachers you allow into this new expansive space. You are ready to choose your mentors. This brings us to our third part, the Library of Giants. We have just completed the first and most foundational course in the University of Life, learning how to think. Your mind is now fertile ground, ready for new seeds of wisdom. The next part of our curriculum is about entering the great library of the world and choosing your mentors. It's about how to furnish your mind with the ideas that build fortunes. This is a lifelong journey of learning, and this channel is your university. If you are committed to continuing this education, to building your own library of wisdom, I invite you to subscribe to this channel right now. Consider it your official student registration. Click that button and let's continue to the next class together. In our last session, our work was profound. We stepped into the faculty of mindset. We learned how to deconstruct the mental box of our own limiting beliefs. We learned how to use the sledgehammer of a new idea to shatter old walls and how to plant the seeds of new thoughts in their place. We have begun the process of learning how to think. The result of this work is a new, expanded mind. The old, cramped room of your thinking has been transformed into a spacious, open hall, ready to be furnished with the finest ideas and the richest philosophies. This leads us to the most practical and exciting question of our curriculum. With what will you now furnish this magnificent new room? This brings us to part 3 of our journey. We are now leaving the faculty lounge and stepping into the heart of the University of Life. We are entering the Library of Giants, the art of choosing your mentors. I want you to consider for a moment one of the greatest privileges of our time. We live in an age where the accumulated wisdom of all of human history is available to us, often for less than the price of a movie ticket. For thousands of years, knowledge was a rare and precious commodity, locked away in monasteries, accessible only to kings and clergy. The average person lived and died within the small circle of their own experience. Today, that has all changed. You and I have a privilege that even the most powerful emperors of the past could not have dreamed of. We have the ability to invite the greatest minds who have ever lived to be our personal, private counselors. This is not a metaphor. This is the literal reality that a book provides. The first discipline in this library is to understand that a book is not just a collection of pages. It is a conversation. It is a mentorship. It is a consultation with a master. Think about it this way. Imagine you could host a dinner party. You could invite anyone from history. Who would you invite to advise you on your life? If you are struggling with adversity, would you not invite the great Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius to sit at your table and teach you the principles of resilience? If you wanted to build an industrial empire, would you not invite Andrew Carnegie and ask him to explain his strategies for wealth creation? Of course you would. That would be an opportunity of a lifetime. And yet, this is precisely the opportunity that a book offers every single day. You cannot have dinner with Carnegie, but you can read his autobiography. You cannot ask Henry Ford for advice, but you can study the books written about his methods. The tragedy is that most people approach this library with no strategy. They read randomly, picking up whatever is on the bestseller list, whatever is recommended by a friend. They are dabblers in wisdom. The architect of a successful life is not a dabbler. They are a strategist. They understand that their reading is not for entertainment, it is for education. And they are deliberate about who they allow to influence their thinking. You must begin to think of your reading not as a hobby, but as the process of assembling your own personal board of directors. You are the CEO of your own life's enterprise. Who are the advisors you will choose to guide your decisions? Your board should have several departments. First, there must be a department of finance and wealth creation. These are your chief financial officers. You must seek out the mentors, the authors who have mastered the game of money. Read the biographies of the great investors. Study the philosophies of the self-made millionaires. Learn the language of assets and liabilities until it is as natural to you as your native tongue. Second, your board needs a department of human nature and influence. This is your sales and marketing division. Life is a study in communication and persuasion. You must learn how to connect with people, how to lead, how to build strong relationships. The works of Dale Carnegie are not about manipulation. They are a master class in understanding the desires and motivations of other people, a critical skill in any endeavor. Third, you must have a department of philosophy and mindset. These are your chief strategists. This is where you study the why behind the what. You read the great thinkers to understand resilience. You read the biographies of great leaders to understand character. You study psychology to understand the workings of your own mind. This department provides the deep foundational strength for your entire enterprise. And finally, you need a department of skills and craft. These are your technical experts. Whatever your chosen field, sales, engineering, art, management, you must commit to being a lifelong student of that craft. You must read everything you can to go deeper than your competition is willing to go. The architect does not build their board by accident. They build it with intention, seeking out the wisest counselors in every critical area of their life. Once you have selected a mentor to invite to your table, you must then learn how to have a productive conversation with them. It is not enough to simply sit in the presence of a giant. You must learn how to extract their wisdom. This is the art of active reading. Most people read passively. They let the words wash over them, much like they watch television. It is a form of light entertainment. They finish the book and a week later can barely recall its central theme. This is not study. This is not a consultation. Active reading is a dialogue. It is an aggressive, intentional pursuit of knowledge. It requires a different set of tools and a different mindset. The first and most important tool of the active reader is a pen. You must never again read a serious book without a pen in your hand. The pen is your tool for engaging in the conversation. You underline key passages. You make notes in the margins. You argue with the author. You ask questions. A book that has been properly read should not look pristine. It should look like the site of a vigorous and exciting intellectual battle. Second, you must learn the art of questioning. As you read, you must interrogate the book. Do I agree with this principle? How does this apply to my current situation? What is the one action I could take based on this chapter? What is the author's underlying assumption here? This turns you from a passive recipient of information into an active participant in your own education. Third, you must practice the discipline of summarize to synthesize. When you finish a great book, the work is not yet done. The final step is to take out a clean sheet of paper and attempt to write a one-page summary of the book's core principles and your key takeaways. This act is a powerful mental exercise. It forces you to distill the essence of the book, to separate the major ideas from the minor ones. You cannot summarize what you do not truly understand. It is the final step in transferring the wisdom from the page into the fabric of your own mind. Imagine two people. They both read the same brilliant book on business strategy. The first person reads it passively. He finishes and says, "That was a very interesting book," and places it back on the shelf. The second person reads it actively with a pen. His book is filled with notes and underlined passages. When he is done, he writes a one-page summary and identifies 3 key strategies he will implement in his business in the coming week. 5 years later, where do you think these two people will be? The first will have a vague, pleasant memory of an interesting book. The second will have a thriving business. It was the same book. The difference was not in the mentor, it was in the quality of the student. This brings us to the final practical part of our discussion in the library. It is about overcoming the 2 great excuses that keep people from this treasure chest of wisdom. I don't have time, and I can't afford it. We must now examine the economics of knowledge. Let us first deconstruct the no time excuse. The average person spends multiple hours per day on passive entertainment, television, social media, and other distractions. If you were to reclaim just 30 minutes of that time each day for active reading, you would read on average between 20 and 30 books in a year. In 5 years, that is over 100 books. Can you imagine the person you would become? Can you imagine the advantage you would have over those who claim they are too busy? The question is not whether you have the time. The question is whether you have the discipline. Now, let us address the excuse of cost. People will hesitate to spend $20 on a book, but will think nothing of spending that same amount on a few coffees or a single meal at a restaurant. This is a failure to understand the concept of return on investment. That meal provides a few minutes of pleasure. That book could provide you with one idea that earns you $100,000. That book could save you from a mistake that cost you your business. That book could give you the insight that transforms your marriage. What is the return on an investment like that? It is incalculable. You must stop seeing books as an expense. A book is the single greatest investment you can ever make in yourself. The cost of ignorance is always, always higher than the cost of education. Think of it this way. There is an ignorance tax that people pay every single day. They pay it in the form of bad financial decisions. They pay it in the form of missed opportunities. They pay it in the form of repeated painful mistakes in their relationships and their careers. This tax is silent, invisible, and it will drain you of your potential for a lifetime. A library is the most effective tax reduction strategy in the world. Every book you read lowers your ignorance tax. So the question is not, can you afford to buy books? The real question is, can you afford not to? So this is our work in the Library of Giants. It begins by assembling your personal board of directors, where you strategically and intentionally choose your mentors from the greatest minds in history. It is made effective through the art of active reading, where you learn to have a vigorous intellectual conversation with every book you open. And it is justified by the economics of knowledge, understanding that the small investment of time and money in your self-education is the highest return activity of your entire life. The result of this work is a new mind. The large empty room you created in stage 2 is no longer empty. It is now a richly furnished study, filled with the wisdom, the strategies, and the philosophies of the giants. It is a mind that is no longer limited to its own small experience, but is now connected to the accumulated wisdom of the ages. And a mind that is this well furnished, this well advised, is now prepared for the final and most important stage of all. It is prepared not just to think, not just to learn, but to do. This brings us to our fourth and final part, the laboratory. In our journey through the University of Life, we have accomplished incredible work. In part one, we made the decision to learn, enrolling ourselves as serious students of success. In part two, we entered the faculty of mindset, learning how to break down the walls of our own limiting beliefs and expand our thinking. And in part three, we walked through the library of giants, learning the art of strategically choosing our mentors and furnishing our minds with the greatest wisdom in history. Our minds are now well furnished. We have consulted with the giants, but I must now share with you the final and most critical part of our curriculum. A life of success is not lived in a library. A fortune is not made in a classroom. All of the knowledge, all of the wisdom, all of the philosophy is worthless until it is subjected to the harsh, unforgiving, but ultimately rewarding crucible of reality. We must now leave the library and step into the laboratory. Welcome to part four, the laboratory, from knowledge to action. This is the final translation, the translation of thought into thing, of idea into enterprise, of knowledge into tangible value. And it is here, at this final stage, that the vast majority of people fail. They spend their lives preparing for a race they never run. They spend their years stocking a kitchen in which they never cook a meal. They become masters of theory, but amateurs in practice. Tonight, we will learn how to bridge this great divide. The first thing we must understand is the psychology that keeps people trapped in the library. I want you to imagine two distinct types of students who graduate from this University of Life. The first is what I call the knowledge collector. This person is brilliant. They have read every book on success, every book on money, every book on personal development. They can quote the great philosophers. They can explain complex investment strategies at a dinner party and sound incredibly intelligent. They are intoxicated with the feeling of learning. The acquisition of knowledge gives them a sense of progress, a hit of intellectual satisfaction. But their journey stops there. I once met a man just like this. He told me, "Jim, I know everything there is to know about how to be wealthy." So I asked him a simple, practical question. "That's wonderful. So how is your bank account looking?" And he went silent, because while he had read everything, he had done nothing. His library was impressive, but his laboratory was empty. He was a collector, not a practitioner. You must understand this danger. Collecting knowledge feels safe. It feels productive, but it carries no risk. You cannot fail while you are reading a book. And because there is no risk, there is no real reward. Knowledge without action is merely a sophisticated form of entertainment. Now, let us look at the second student. I call this person the practitioner. The practitioner might read only 1/10 of the books that the collector does, but their entire approach is different. They do not read for intellectual entertainment. They read for ammunition. They read for tools. When the practitioner reads a book, they are not a passive observer. They are a hunter, stalking a single, actionable idea. They read a book on goal setting. They don't just admire the philosophy. They close the book, take out a piece of paper, and as we discussed, they write down their goals. They create a plan. They take the one idea and they subject it to the test of reality. The collector's goal is to know. The practitioner's goal is to do. And in the economy of life, it is the doers who are rewarded, not the knowers. You must redefine what learning means to you. True learning has not occurred until a behavior has changed. If you have read a book on discipline, but your daily habits remain the same, you have not learned. You have only been informed. So how do we become a practitioner? How do we build that bridge from the library to the laboratory? We must adopt a new methodology. We must adopt the mindset of a scientist. A scientist does not just read theories, they test them. This is the scientific method for success. It has 4 simple but powerful steps. Step 1 is to form a hypothesis. This is the actionable idea you extract from your reading. As you read with your pen in hand, you are no longer just underlining interesting quotes. You are hunting for a testable hypothesis. You read a book on sales, and the author claims if you ask more open-ended questions, you will close more deals. That is your hypothesis. You read a book on productivity, and the author claims if you work in 90-minute uninterrupted blocks, your output will double. That is your hypothesis. Step 2 is to run an experiment. The key to overcoming the fear of action is to make the experiment small. You don't have to bet your entire life savings on a new investment strategy you just read about. That is not science, that is gambling. No, you conduct a small-scale, low-risk test. You try the new sales technique on 5 clients. You try the 90-minute work block for one afternoon. You are not committing your life to it, you are simply gathering data. This makes the act of starting less intimidating. Step 3 is to collect the data. This is where the discipline of stage 1, reflection and journaling, becomes your laboratory notebook. You must track the results of your experiment. Did the new sales technique work? What were the responses? Did the 90-minute block increase your output, or did you just feel tired? You must be an objective observer of the results. The practitioner does not deal in feelings, they deal in facts. And step 4 is to analyze the results and refine the hypothesis. Based on the data you have collected, you analyze. The open-ended questions worked, but only with a certain type of client. The 90-minute block was effective, but I need a short break in the middle. You refine your theory, and then you run a new, more intelligent experiment. This is the process: hypothesis, experiment, data, analysis. This is how you turn a vague idea from a book into a proven real-world strategy that works for you. Success is not about finding one magic bullet. It is about becoming a master experimenter, constantly testing, learning, and refining. This brings us to the ultimate purpose of all this work in the laboratory. Why do we go through this rigorous process of learning and applying, learning and applying? We do it for one reason: to be ready. I have found that life does not just hand out opportunities to the deserving. Life hands out opportunities to the prepared. And the laboratory of your life is your preparation ground. I want you to imagine your life as a long corridor. Along this corridor, there are many locked doors. Each door is labeled opportunity, a once-in-a-lifetime investment, a chance to lead a major project, a partnership with a brilliant individual. You do not know which doors will appear or when they show up, often unannounced. Now, every time you read a book and apply its lessons, every time you run an experiment in your laboratory, you are forging a new key. You read a book on public speaking and you practice it. You have just forged the influence key. You read a book on finance and you open your first investment account. You have just forged the wealth creation key. You read a book on a new technology in your industry and master it. You have just forged the promotion key. Your job is not to wait by a locked door, hoping it will magically open. Your job is to spend your life in the laboratory forging a master ring of keys. The ultimate tragedy is the tragedy of the unprepared. To have the great opportunity of your life appear right in front of you, the perfect door, and to reach for your key ring, only to find that you do not have the one key that is required to open it. I have seen people who read a book on business after their first company has failed. They read a book on investing after they have lost their money in a bad deal. Do not wait until you are desperate to start learning. Get ahead of the curve. Forge your keys before you need them. This is the true definition of luck. Luck is not a random event. Luck is what happens when years of preparation finally meet a moment of opportunity. You cannot control the appearance of the door, but you have absolute 100% control over the number of keys on your ring. So this is the fourth and final part of our curriculum in the University of Life. This is the work of the laboratory. It begins by bridging the great divide, making the conscious choice to be a practitioner who applies, not just a collector who knows. It is made systematic through the scientific method for success, where you treat your life as a series of intelligent experiments: hypothesis, experiment, data, and analysis. And its ultimate purpose is to ensure that preparation meets opportunity, so that when the locked door of your destiny appears, you are standing before it with the right key in your hand. A life of success is not a destination you arrive at. It is a lifelong experiment. The laboratory is never closed. The learning is never finished. It is a dynamic, exciting, and ultimately profitable process of continuous growth and application. And now, having journeyed through all 4 faculties of this great university, enrollment, mindset, mentorship, and action, we have the complete formula. We have all the pieces. The only thing that remains is the final choice. And so our curriculum is complete. We have journeyed together through the great halls of the most important institution of learning you will ever attend, the University of Life. In part 1, we stood at the gates and made the decision to learn. We had our awakening, realizing that our outer world is a direct reflection of our inner world, and that self-education, not formal education, is what builds a fortune. We made the choice to enroll. In part 2, we attended our first and most important class in the Faculty of Mindset. We learned how to deconstruct the mental box of our own limiting beliefs and how to use the power of a single idea like a seed to grow a new reality. We learned how to think. In part 3, we walked through the hallowed aisles of the Library of Giants, learning how to assemble a personal board of directors from the greatest minds in history. Transforming books from simple objects into profound mentorships, we learned what to think. And finally, in part 4, we stepped into the laboratory, discovering that knowledge without action is a delusion. We learned to bridge the great divide, to become a practitioner, not just a collector, and to forge the keys of preparation for the locked doors of opportunity. We learned how to apply our thinking. The education is now yours. But I must be clear, this is not an end. It is a commencement. A commencement is, by its very definition, a beginning. You are now a graduate, armed with a new philosophy, a new set of tools, and like every graduate who has ever stood at a commencement, you are faced with a choice. You now stand at the great crossroads of your life, with 2 distinct paths before you. The path you choose from this day forward will determine everything. Let us, for one final time, examine these 2 paths with unflinching honesty. The first path is wide, easy, and requires nothing from you. It is the path of the person who, after hearing all this, chooses to do nothing. It is the path of the person who refuses to enroll, or who enrolls but never truly studies. This is the path of the uneducated life, in the terms of our university. What is a life lived without the decision to learn? It is a life of repeated history. It is the experience of facing the same financial struggles at 40 as you did at 20. It is to wonder why your hard work never seems to pay off without realizing that you are trying to solve a knowledge problem with a labor solution. It is to be a ship captain who believes the answer to every storm is to row harder, not to learn how to navigate. It is a life of earnest effort but poor results. What is a life lived with an unexamined mindset? It is a life spent trapped in that tiny mental box we discussed. You live out the limited programming of your childhood. You see the world through a lens of scarcity and fear. You see a successful person and your first thought is, they must have gotten lucky, not, what do they know that I don't? It is a life where your own thinking is your greatest enemy, a jailer that you mistake for a protector. What is a life lived without the counsel of the Library of Giants? It is a life of profound loneliness and limited perspective. Your board of directors is made up of your cynical brother-in-law, the negative nightly news, and the trivial distractions of social media. You are taking advice on how to build a skyscraper from people who have never built anything. It is a life where your mind is furnished with cheap, second-hand opinions instead of timeless, priceless wisdom. And what is a life lived only in the library without ever entering the laboratory? It is the life of the intelligent fool. It is the man we spoke of who had read every book but had done nothing. It is a life of knowing the path, but never taking the first step. It is the ultimate frustration, to hold the key in your hand, but to die of thirst outside the locked door to the well. It is a life of intellectual arrogance and real-world impotence. This is the portrait of the life on the first path. It is not necessarily a bad life. For most, it is a life of quiet frustration. It is the tragedy of arriving at the end of your days with all your potential, all your music still locked inside you. It is the life built on the most expensive foundation in the world, the cost of ignorance. But there is another path, the one you have been preparing for. It is the path of the graduate, the path of the lifelong student, the path of the architect. What is a life built upon the decision to learn? It is a life of constant growth and expansion. It is the humble and powerful life of a person who knows that every problem, every challenge, is simply a knowledge problem in disguise. It is a life where age brings not just wrinkles, but wisdom. It is a life of profound optimism, because you know that the answer to any challenge you face is available to you if you are willing to seek it out. What is a life lived with a deliberately cultivated mindset? It is a life of freedom. It is the experience of seeing possibilities where others see only problems. It is the ability to look at a goal that seems impossible to others and ask, what would I have to learn to make this possible? It is to be the master of your inner world, and therefore not a victim of your outer world. What is a life guided by the wisdom from the library of giants? It is a life of quiet confidence. It is to walk into a negotiation armed with the wisdom of the world's greatest deal makers. It is to face a personal crisis with the resilience of the ancient Stoics. It is to lead a team with the compassion and strategy of the great leaders of history. It is to know that you are never truly alone, because your mind is a council of the wisest mentors who have ever lived. And what is a life lived in the laboratory of action? It is a life of momentum and tangible results. It is the deep earned satisfaction of turning an idea into an enterprise, of turning a goal into an achievement. It is a life of intelligent experimentation, where every failure becomes a stepping stone and every success becomes a platform for the next level of growth. It is a life of substance, not just theory. This is the portrait of the architect. This person is not just successful. They are a work of art. They are self-made in the truest sense of the word. They have consciously and deliberately constructed their own mind, their own philosophy, and therefore their own destiny. This is the prize of a life dedicated to self-education. So we stand at the end of our time together, at your commencement. In a traditional university, they would now hand you a diploma, a piece of paper to hang on your wall. But in the University of Life, your diploma is not a trophy to be admired. Your diploma is a key. And your education is not a monument to your past, but a tool for your future. The entire purpose of this journey has been to forge this one key, the key that unlocks the door to your own potential. So your graduation assignment is not a final exam to test what you know. It is a first step to prove what you will do. I am asking you to make a promise, a commencement promise. I want you to choose one book, not 10, just one. The one book that speaks to your greatest current need or your highest current ambition. Perhaps it is a book on finance, on leadership, on health, on relationships. You know which one it is. Your assignment is this: acquire that one book within the next 24 hours. Go to a library, go to a bookstore, order it online. It does not matter how. This is your first act as a graduate of this new philosophy. It is the physical manifestation of your decision. It is the first step onto the path of the architect, because here is the final, ultimate truth. The next 5 years are going to pass, no matter what. Time does not pause for our indecision. It is marching forward relentlessly. The question you must ask yourself as you stand here on your graduation day is this: when those 5 years have passed, where will you have arrived? Will you be standing in the very same place you are today, with the same challenges, the same frustrations, the same limited knowledge, only 5 years older? Or will you be standing in a new place, a place of your own design, a place of greater wisdom, greater wealth, greater strength, and greater freedom? Will you look back on today, not as the day you watched a video, but as the day your true education began? The formula is here. The choice is yours. The library of the world is waiting. The only thing left is for you to turn the first page. Your formal education may be over, but your real education, the one that will shape your fortune and your future, is just beginning. Congratulations, graduate. Now, go and build your masterpiece. Your commencement is not an end. It is the beginning of your new life as a practitioner. This university is always open, and our community of students is always growing. If you are committed to this path of lifelong learning and application, I invite you to become a permanent member of this community of architects and builders. Subscribe to the channel and let this be the start of an ongoing conversation about the ideas that shape a life of success. Welcome to the journey. Thank you.